Welcome to Career Channels, the official podcast of CareerSource North Florida. And now, on to the episode.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Career Channels, the podcast of CareerSource North Florida. I am Diane Head, your host for today. And with me today is my coworker, Kathy Bass. She is a business service manager. Is that your title?
Business service, business development manager, however you want to put it. Yeah.
There we go. Business development manager.
There we go.
And we thought we would spend a little bit of time today talking about apprenticeships and what that looks like or could look like in the North Florida area, and just kind of sharing ideas and thoughts about a different way to train and to receive training. So, Kathy, tell me everything you know about apprenticeships. How about that?
Well, let's see. I mean, the one good thing about it, it's a good way. It's what they considered a good way to learn and earn, because you are actually employed with the employer during this process. So you're not just going to school. You are learning a trade, learning something new, and actually a wage at the same time. Because, of course, a lot of people can't afford just to take time off work to go back to school to learn something new. So this is a very good option.
So if for our viewers, and our listeners, we are recording this in 2024, September of 2024, which happens to be Workforce Development Month. For those of you who may not be celebrating, you should be, because it's a great month to celebrate. But right now, as we sit here talking, in our region, we serve Hamilton, Lafayette, Madison, Suwannee, and Taylor counties, and rural North Florida. We have 2 registered apprenticeships, as well as a few others who they are apprenticeships, but they're the employer of those apprenticeships are not in our region. So they're, and again, we'll talk about that, the different ways apprenticeships can be set up. But there are 2 employer-based, employer-sponsored apprenticeships in our region. One of them has been around a while, which is actually our apprenticeship here at CareerSource North Florida for our frontline staff, our career development specialists. They go through I believe it's a 3-year apprenticeship. And we've had that in place since about 2021, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2020. It's been a while.
You should know that.
I should know that. Absolutely. And the other one is brand new. It's like hot off the presses, right?
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about the new one that's out there, and a lot of work that you put in, helping them facilitate the process of getting that developed.
They did a lot of work on that. It is actually with Lippert out of Perry. So it is an aluminum welding program that they have set up. They're working close with Big Bend Technical for the training part of it. So they are already hired. Have been working since, I believe it was around the first part of August. So they have been earning a wage and learning a new trade. So yes, it is very exciting. New program with the college and with them as an employer as well. So it's a great start over there.
So let's talk a minute about the different ways apprenticeships can be set up. A lot of times I get the question, I don't know about you, you might get different questions, but I get the question, well, all my jobs are office jobs. I don't have anything that an apprentice can do.
Right.
Oh, really? So anymore, an apprenticeship can be any job, any occupation, in any industry. The only requirement is that it be over 2,000 hours, which is essentially a year of work. If you think about it, year of work with 2 weeks off. So 2,000 hours is the minimum time frame of an apprenticeship for the
Right.
state of Florida. But occupations, we were talking right before we went on the air that I just pulled up the apprenticeship.gov website. There is also an Apprenticeship Florida website, or apprenticeflorida.com.
Just Florida.
But so apprenticeship.gov or apprenticeflorida.com. But on the federal site, it actually provides a breakdown by state of what the apprentices there are doing. And so in the state of Florida, there's your traditional electricians, plumbers, HVAC, elevator construction, pipe fitters, things that you would normally expect.
Right. Your
Traditional
trades.
trades.
Right.
But there's also things like nurse assistant, truck driver, fire medic, diesel mechanic, and I'm going down the list, a peer specialist, an application developer. So it really doesn't matter what the job is or what industry it's in. The other piece I hear is that, well, in my place of employment, we're not union. But that doesn't matter either.
Right.
Actually, a majority of the apprentices in the state of Florida are not union members. Currently, of the almost 17,000 apprentices in the state of Florida, they are not union members.
Right.
So about 6,000 are union members, and the balance of that is not. So lots of opportunity out there for employers to jump in. How would an employer get started with if they're considering an apprenticeship?
If they're considering that, they can call us, so we could start, sit down, have a conversation, try to see exactly what their needs are, if they're looking to fill positions right now, or if they're just looking to grow their talent. And that's where this is really good. Talking about questions, when I go in and talk to employers, they say, oh, well, I've already got those positions filled. And that's something they need to start looking at is how old are your employees? Are they getting close to the retirement age? You want to make sure that you're growing that talent while you still got the people there with the knowledge that can help in the training process. So that's the one thing about apprenticeship. It's an ongoing thing. You don't just hire one or two. You have that program that helps build your talent and keep your business growing is what it is.
And those people who have the knowledge base in the company are what we term as journeymen.
Right.
And they're the ones who ultimately perform the training, provide the training for the new apprentice. And so a lot of times the journeyman is the one who signs off that the skill has been accomplished, or that it has been learned and demonstrated, and they have that competency to do the work. So the journeyman has a very important role in the process of the apprenticeship. I was just looking at the statistics, and a majority of the apprentices in the state of Florida in registered apprenticeship programs are ages 25 to 54. So we're not talking about, it doesn't have to be a lot of young people. No. You can be an apprentice at any age.
Right.
I'm trying to do the math on that, and I'm not great at that, as you know, but I would say maybe a third of the apprentices in the state are under the age of 24.
Yeah.
So while a lot of people think of younger individuals as being apprentices. It can be people of any age. It doesn't matter.
Right, right.
Again, going back to the employers love this training model. And we have a lot of great training providers. We have 3 great training providers in our region, and
Yes.
they do an amazing, amazing job. But sometimes the market doesn't support there being a full-blown program for certain occupations. And it makes it not feasible for the training providers to open those programs. So sometimes the employer has to take on that role of the trainer.
Right.
And this is just a great model to implement for those employers. I was looking at some of the statistics about, it says 93% of apprentices are still employed 9 months after the completion of their apprenticeship. That's huge.
That's
when you talk about turnover, you're talking about really impacting the bottom line.
right.
And
And like you said, that number goes to show that most of the ones going through that program, that, you know, if that employer is willing to put in the time to develop them, you know, those employees appreciate that, and they will stay there. Like you said, it's like 93% that stay at the employer of who put them through the apprenticeship, gave them the training, and developed those skills. They have a bond there, and they tend to stay.
So one thing I wanted to talk about is actually how the apprenticeships are set up. So once they contact us, we're probably going to ask you, do you already have a training plan in place? Do you already have a training program in place? Most every employer does, right? You don't just bring people on and throw them to the wolves.
No, you have a plan. It may not be quite a formal plan, but you do have a training plan already in place usually.
And we've already talked about the time frame that apprenticeships have to be registered, but also it doesn't matter. I always say the employer says who does the training, when the training is done, how the training is done. They are completely in the driver's seat on it and how they want to fashion the apprenticeship.
Right.
So it could be classroom. It could be 50-50 classroom and OJT. It could be sometimes front loaded with classroom training and then OJT. It could be OJT first, then some classroom training, then some more OJT, then some classroom training. There's no set standard for that. It's what the employer designs and what works best for them.
And what's best for, you know, for both the employee and the employer, and depending on what the position is. Because like you said, some may be a little more detailed, more trade. So you do have a little more instructional in there, but it is, like I said, the employer is in the driver's seat, whatever's going to be the best for them. And once we talk to the employer, we get more information. Then what we will do is reach out to the Department of Education and bring in the local apprentice trainer representative and kind of introduce them to the employer, where they can give a little more detail as to what the processes are. So we're kind of the first person that the employer talks with, and then we handhold them pretty much through the whole process with Department of Education until everything is approved and set. And then we can also help with reaching out, finding the talent that's out there, the people that are looking to go into those positions as well.
And I also try to remind employers that if someone comes in with the skills, you can give them credit, especially if it's a competency-based training plan or set of standards, then the employer can give that worker credit for those hours that they come in with.
Right.
They may not have to do the full training
training
of
process and the number of hours.
right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean you have to bring someone in completely fresh, because by all means, if those skills already exist, you can bring those into the mix as well. So
Right.
you can have a competency based, a time based, it's however, or a combination thereof. Ours here at Career Source North Florida is competency based, and we take a look at the skills that or the proficiencies someone already has when they come in. So if they came in as being, maybe they had done this role or a similar type role at a college or maybe another region, then that's something that we can give some credit for. And we literally go line by line down the training plan and say, okay, yes, these hours are good. But so who can sponsor an apprenticeship?
An employer can sponsor one. Like I said, we've sponsored them before. I think schools have kind of sponsored them.
Yeah, there again, no rules, just
No rules.
that's probably copyright infringement. Sorry, Doug.
Yeah.
So so yeah, anyone attached, it doesn't have to be the employer. It can be Career Source acting as a lead agency or like a consortium of employers.
Right.
It could be the training provider themselves. Like I mentioned, there's a few of those in our region, one or two of those in our region right now, where the training provider is actually housed here in our region, but then they go to the employer, or maybe they do virtual training with the employers who actually hire the apprentices. And that's the key piece, is that there has to be demand for it.
Right.
There has to be a need for the apprenticeship. The employer has to have buy-in. The schools or any trade associations can formulate an apprenticeship and be a sponsor. But at the end of the day, these individuals have to be hired. They have to be employees. So if there's no hiring taking place, if there's no employer buy-in or demand from the employer for these skills, then there is no apprenticeship. And I think we say that all the time, but I don't think people generally understand that apprenticeships aren't just built. There has to be demand from the employer or the business community.
Yes. And also with employers, sometimes depending on what the trade is, they don't have to develop that plan on their own. There may be already an apprenticeship set up that they can go up underneath that apprenticeship, look at that plan, see how everything works. They might want to tweak it for themselves, but there's already an approved apprenticeship out there. And it's just a matter of getting it to work for that employer.
Yeah, absolutely. And in Florida, we are and I'm going to say this all wrong, we are a state who registers our apprenticeships in the state with the Department of Education of the state of Florida. Not every state is like that. Our neighbors just to the north, our neighbors 20 miles away do it differently.
Yes.
In Georgia. So at least I believe that's still the case.
Yeah.
So there is a national standard agency who sets the national apprenticeships, or those states who register through the national program, but then other states register their apprenticeships locally at the state level. So but here in Florida, we go through the State Department of Education, and that website actually has a lot of information about where apprenticeships are, and how many, what the occupations are. So you can get a lot of information from there, or from the local ATR, apprenticeship training representative. I always get acronyms backwards for some reason. So, but the local ATR can provide a lot of information, and those maps are on the state website, and you can find out who your local contact is, or you just call us and we'll let you know who that is. We'll walk you up to that point, and then they'll make sure that everything is legal, that everything is, that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
And that's a good time to mention too, Diane, that, because of that and having to make sure everything is right, when people go through these apprenticeship programs, they come out with certifications. So, they have those credentials that are theirs at the end of it. It doesn't belong to the employer. It does belong to the individual that's gone through the training. So that's another good benefit for
and it goes
anybody
with them
thinking,
wherever
it
they
goes
go.
with them wherever they go. So anybody thinking, what I want to do that, you learn a trade, you get your credentials. So yes, and you're earning money. You're not just out of work. You are working while you're going through it. So yes, big benefit.
Huge. Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for joining me and helping me talk to our followers, our listeners, our watchers about apprenticeships. And we look forward to adding more apprenticeships in our region, and helping employers train their current staff, but also starting to develop the pipeline for future years.
Yes. Thank you.
So thank you for joining us on this episode of Career Channels. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Career Channels, the official podcast of CareerSource North Florida. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about CareerSource North Florida and the services they provide, visit careersourcenorthflorida.com. That's careersourcenorthflorida.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.